After 8 races in 36 days, we've now gone 11 without. Daytona marks the middle point of the season, and after so much hype going into the year about the parity of the class, only 4 riders have collected a victory, and the championship looks like it's coming down to just 2. Injuries have ravaged the 250s, but the rest of the 450 field is as deep as ever, with 9 different guys on the podium and 12 in the top 5. With 9 races to go, let's take a look at who holds the power in the 450 class. But before we jump into the countdown, please hit that little subscribe button right below the video if you want more Moto and Supercross content in your feed. I post multiple videos every week that I know you'll like, especially if you play Fantasy Moto and Supercross. Stick around until the end of the video if you play Pulp MX Fantasy to learn how you can maximize your score every single week and climb those rankings. All right, without further ado, let's get to the countdown. Slipping down to number 10 after 2 rough rounds in Orlando is Dylan Ferrandis. This may feel unfair as his last 2 rounds, a 22nd and 11th respectively, were a bit out of his control, and his charge from last all the way back up to 11th could very well be the ride of the year so far. But this is just a testament to how stacked this field is. I fully expect Dylan to bounce back and climb back up in the coming weeks. Making his first appearance on the list since the preseason rankings is number 21, Jason Anderson. Of course, his opening round was very, very rough, and he also completely missed the 5th round in Indy entirely after a practice crash, but his other 6 rounds have been all within the top 8, with his latest a 5th place finish at Orlando 2. We will never know what happened at H1, or if he came into the season hurt or just simply unprepared, but he looks to be in mid-season form, and this may be the best Jason Anderson we've seen since his 2018 championship season. Sliding up 1 spot to number 8 is Zach Osborne, the eldest Rockstar Husqvarna and defending Lucas Oil Pro Motocross champion, has had a bit of a rough start. I expected him to pick up where he left off in SLC and Outdoors and picked him as my first choice to upset Eli before the season started. My faith was rewarded with a best finish of 9th after the first 3 rounds, but since then he's landed 2 top 5s and a podium in Orlando and is one of only 3 riders this season that have finished top 10 in every single race. Daytona always being a more outdoor-inspired layout should play to Osborne's strengths, but if he continues to struggle even here, it's definitely a major cause for concern. After spending the entire season ranked 4th in my power rankings, Adam Cianciarulo free falls to 7th after struggles that were followed by injury. Orlando 1 was a major struggle for AC where he just didn't look like he belonged alongside the guys up front, and he bounced back at the Orlando sequel running 2nd before pile driving himself into the whoop section and landing about as awkward as a person can contort. I considered dropping him entirely because of his injury, as he will miss at least a single round, but to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he sits out until Atlanta, taking the full 7 weeks to rehab his off-season injury as well as his current ailments. Staying at number 6 is Star Racing Yamaha's Malcolm Stewart. Mookie has become a rock this season with Lorocco-like consistency in place of his usual blistering short-term pace. He is still missing that elusive 450 podium finish, but 3 rounds ago he logged his career best finish of 4th, and no one has forgotten that heat race Mookie is still living in there and could put together a few insane laps when needed if he can snag a great start. Up to his highest rankings this year is number 25, Marvin Musquin. Red Bull KTM senior rider may have had the most unlucky start to a season imaginable. He has gone down more times this season than the rest of his 450 career combined, it feels like. Sure, maybe he just forgot how to start, jump, turn, and throttle this year. He didn't forget how to blitz the whoops because he never knew how, or maybe it's just a comedy of errors. Either way, Marv has logged 2 podiums in the last 3 rounds, including runner-up to his teammate at the last round in Orlando. He sits 5th in the points and is just 1 race away from catching and passing 4th. Speaking of 4th, we are continuing Monster Kawasaki's woes. Another free-falling rider is Eli Tomac, the number 1 going into the season, but now 3rd in points and 4th in power. The defending champion appears to have nothing for Coop and Kenny, and to a lesser extent, even Barcia. He still possesses some of the best racecraft in the field, but unfortunately, that doesn't mean much when 5 of his 8 starts have been outside the top 5, and 3 of them were 8th or worse. It's hard to believe the rider who has won 30 main events and 67 tries over the past 4 years is only 1 for 8 this season, but maybe he can turn it back around at Daytona. He could sure use the momentum. Rising all the way from number 9 in the preseason to number 3 at the midway point is Justin Barcia. Maybe I was too critical of the aging rider, or the brand new team, or switching to a steel frame. Either way, Bam Bam should be considered for the podium every single night. Removing his broken shifter, which he still salvaged a top 10 with, and the Vincident, he has been in the top 5 every night but one. At this point, he is a title long shot, but if he can stay consistently up front and the top 2 falter, he's in a prime position to finally snag an elusive title or at least make it close. Staying at number 2 is number 2. Cooper Webb has won the last 2 main events and is poised to go on another mid-season tear. Although Webb has never won at Daytona, he has finished on the podium all 3 times he's lined up. His slim deficit of 6 points has obviously benefited greatly from Ken's penalty and the Dean Wilson incident both in Houston, but this is exactly where Coop wants to be at the season's midway point. And finally, still at number 1, red plate, red bike, Ken Roczen. The Honda HRC factory rider is the only man behind the gate to finish in the top 5 in every single main event, managing to salvage his bad starts by carving up the field early. The next round in Daytona will be a precarious one though, as 1 year ago Ken went into Daytona with the red plate and left with the white one and never reclaimed it. We all know that Roczen is the most emotionally driven rider, and that is both a blessing and a curse here, and is one of the reasons he is so well loved by the fans. But his track record at Daytona is not great, finishing 2nd, 8th, 5th, 2nd, and 7th. But it's not fair to be so hard on the points leader. This is the best 8 rounds Ken has ever had to open a premier class season, and at the halfway point, he is still in the saddle and controls his own destiny. So where do you think I got it wrong? Do you think Webb is going to continue his streak and go on another mid-season tear? Let me know in the comments below where you think I got it wrong and who you have at number 1. If you play Fantasy Supercross, especially if you play Pulp MX Fantasy, be sure to subscribe to RotoMoto. I post a video every single week to maximize your score in the format. Be sure to follow RotoMoto on both Twitter and Instagram for qualifying insights, injury reports, race day banter, and of course those ever important fantasy cheat sheets that I release about an hour before the gate drop that puts the qualifying results, the fantasy handicaps, and the heat breakdowns all on one easy to read page. For even more fantasy content, if you want extra credit, you can subscribe to RotoMoto on Patreon. A link is down below. That will give you access to the enhanced cheat sheets, which is packed full of more information than you have any idea what to do with. It also features an additional podcast exclusive to Patreon that comes out as soon as the handicaps drop. They give you my initial reactions of every single rider in the field and is a great complement to the official Pulp MX Fantasy podcast. This channel was made entirely possible by the Patreons, and I just want to give a thanks to good people like Buell S, Vaughn C, and Fred F. Thank you so much for watching RotoMoto. My name is Donnie. I will see you on race day.